President Trump talking about that meeting that he had for about 15 minutes, of course, at and just ahead of the Pope's funeral with President Zelensky. Does that meeting, both sides talking positively after that conversation, does it get us any closer at all to finding the parameters of a peace deal?
Well, it certainly does seem that on the one hand, President Zelensky did sound an optimistic note, and of course we heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that this was the start of a very critical week in those negotiations. On the other hand, we did hear from President Trump after that talk, acknowledging that potentially Russia does not want peace. He did seem to reference a missile strike on Ukraine, which of course the talks followed one of the deadliest airstrikes of the year from Russia on Ukraine. And he did seem to say that potentially Putin doesn't want peace and was maybe dragging out the process. We heard President Trump actually threatened potentially more banking and secondary sanctions. Of course, Russia is very sanctioned already, but it does represent a change in tone from President Trump, who up until now, his administration has put forward proposals that critics have said were very favorable towards Russia. And of course, Europe and Ukraine had worried that in the rush to a peace deal, their own security might be sacrificed. So this definitely represents a change of tone on that regard.
Yeah, a marked and notable, as you say, change in tone from the US president. And we'll see to what extent he continues that line of pressure now on Russia, to some extent, at least rhetorically. Meanwhile, North Korea, Greg, confirming for the first time that it has deployed troops to support Russia's war on Ukraine. What are the implications of something that we have long known, of course, but now North Korea coming out and saying, yes, we have troops deployed?
Well, it's very interesting. As you said, this has long been known that they have deployed troops and they've been supporting Russia with military ordnance. Of course, last year, the two countries signed a defense pact to support each other in areas of defense. So this is confirmation of those deepening ties between the two countries. Ties, of course, that worry Washington, and even Beijing is eyeing warily. And of course, China has been a diplomatic and economic supporter of Russia since the beginning of the war. The other thing to note here is that as Russia is claiming to have kicked out Ukrainian troops from the Kursk region, it's also a loss of a potential bargaining chip for Ukraine as negotiations heat up. Ukraine, of course, wanted to use that toehold in Russia's territory as at the bargaining chip to potentially strengthen their hand. And of course, if they have been expelled, that would mark a loss for them of a strategic chip.